Here we are, a video more than 1 year in the making. Nah, but seriously, I'm really glad I was finally able to get these comic pages done, get them published. You can check out the comic over on Webtoon, on my Facebook page, DeviantArt, lots of different places. Oh yeah, and Patreon. Patreon's a thing. I'm just gonna do this podcast style, so not a lot of editing, no scripting whatsoever. If you want to just turn this audio off and go listen to your own tunes while you watch the time lapse, have at it. I might recommend that actually, since I went to CC Mixter for most of the music on this one. I'm running out of non-copyright sounds on YouTube, and I don't like reusing the same music, so... Alright, I remember I was really excited to start this page back in December of 2019. Wow, that takes us back. It was the first page where I got to introduce one of my dragons. That's Dagon there in the first panel. So, that was a really big deal at the time. I was very excited to finally be able to paint some dragons.
Pull the lever, Frank.
Layer.
At the same time, I remember I was getting really tired of drawing Carl's face. It's a double-edged sword, kind of, because I started to get really comfortable with drawing Carl about the same time I got really tired of drawing Carl. And, you know, here, a year and a half later, I still have more Carls to draw. Got some concept art over there on the right. That stuff was available on my Patreon before I posted it with the comic. Just some concept sketches of the dragon side of the family there. I'm kind of getting into my teacher voice a little bit, I'm sorry. It's gonna get tough too. I'm basically sitting in an oven. The air conditioner is off so I can record, and it is supposed to get up to about 100 degrees today. Currently I think it's around 90, maybe 91. Trying to finish this in as few takes as possible for obvious reasons. You can see initially I started drawing this panel with all of the shelves in the storage room, and I ditched that in favor of showing more of Dagon. There was an audio clip from one of my recent streams talking about how I had very adamantly written in my early notes for the story that his name was pronounced Dagon, not Dagon. And of course I've completely abandoned that now. A lot of things about a story change over 11 or 12 years. I forget how long it's been actually. What year is it? I don't know. On the left there, I've blurred out my story. That's the novel version that I've been using to convert into the comic, and I've been highlighting each paragraph in a different color to denote which page the story takes place on. So you can see the yellow one there is split up into several different pages because the way the story flows in the written version is different from how it goes in the comic. Hello. Oh, this feels so weird. Okay. So, comic page, work in progress. It looks really terrible right now, which is always great to come back to. I don't even remember what I was going to put in that middle panel there. We'll figure it out as we go. So, update on the whole Twitch channel thing. Obviously, I haven't been streaming recently. I haven't been able to because the living situation I'm in now, I don't have reliable internet access. I literally just have my phone hotspot, and there's no way I can possibly stream on that. It's been a real bummer. I've really missed hanging out with everybody. Hopefully I can get back to that eventually, so if you want to go ahead and subscribe, maybe I'll see you on there one day again, someday. In the meantime, I've got these videos and Patreon, and I try and stay as connected with y'all as possible. remember I was so anxious to start working on this panel in particular because you're working with characters in motion and live drawing in front of an audience. Obviously, I'm always really afraid I'm gonna draw someone looking goofy. And I definitely did. But, you know, it all turned out good in the end, and I'm definitely happy with this panel by the end of the process. I think this page, in terms of just hours spent working on it, took me longer than any page up to this point. There were a lot of background details to add, and the character poses were pretty complex. The dialogue, even in that second row there, was pretty difficult to arrange. And there was a lot of world building that went into it too, especially with the dragons and their saddles and, you know, the different things you see sitting around in the storage room. I'm not entirely happy with just the general clutter. Honestly, I wish I could have gotten a little more creative with it. You have some bottles, some broken bits and bobs. You can't really tell what all of it is. I tried to keep some of it very ambiguous. On page 15, we finally see the other dragon, Relina, and she's Deb's dragon, just like Dagon is Carl's. Not that caffeine does a whole lot to wake me up, but it might be something. So, little context for why I was so exhausted all the time working on these pages is at the same time as I was trying to get these pages out, of course, you know, the pandemic was happening. Really tough thing to go through here in South Texas where kind of nobody took it seriously. And I was searching for a new place to live, searching for an RV or a trailer in particular that I could purchase outright and then park at a space that had been offered to me. So going through all of that at the same time as keeping up with my several different jobs in the stress of the pandemic, like, it was a nightmare. I was tired all the time, and finding the creative energy to work on this, like, I still don't know how I did this at all. It took me a really long time, but it's a miracle that I did it at all. I think I talked about this on stream, but that lantern was a lot of on-the-fly world building. I needed a way for Dagon to be able to hold one of the spells. In world, you've got these wear-lights, I guess, that the sorcerers can hold, but the dragons can't move them through the air the way that the sorcerers can. So Dagon's got his little handy-dandy lantern. Okay. Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Anyway, talking about all the stress and the weariness of the past year and a half, I don't want to get too negative, because I'm still really happy to be here, happy to be working on this project, but I don't want to completely gloss over the difficulties either, and I think it's important to mention that. Whatever happens, I feel incredibly blessed to be able to still be doing this. To be working on this project at all is the best thing ever, because, you know, the alternative is giving up on it, putting it back on a back burner, and going and getting a full-time day job again. And I've been trying to avoid that at all costs. Obviously, I tried the full-time day job thing for many years, and I don't know, I feel weird about even saying that, because, like, you shouldn't be complaining as an adult, obviously, about having a full-time job, and that's not what I mean to do. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it and do the comic. I couldn't get off of a 8-hour shift, sometimes 9-hour, and go home and work for several more hours. Not least because I needed those hours to buy and cook and prepare food. It just never worked. So now that I'm doing this, I've got this kind of weird, precariously balanced living situation that works to a certain degree. I'm trying to make it work. I'm gonna keep trying to make it work as well as I can. It's funny looking back how much I used to hate doing the line work and how much I enjoy it now. I think I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that it was kind of frustrating for me having to do these dark lines as part of the comic process, because I've never enjoyed line work. I've always been one to kind of start with the colors and block in big shapes. So this whole comic process I've developed is completely out of left field for me. I've come to enjoy it now, but initially it was really frustrating to have to start this way, to organize my pages this way, and I fought it for a long time, which is also something that slowed me down. But yeah, it's weird to look back and realize at some point in all this process, I started to actually enjoy line work. I couldn't tell you exactly when it happened. Watching this panel back is also reminding me that I intended to make some kind of 3D model of a dragon head at some point that I could use to reference for different angles. I'd really gotta do that someday. I think I downloaded a free trial of ZBrush like 5 years ago, so I'm pretty sure that's expired. I wonder if I can get another one. Now that I've got a more consistent process for making the pages, I'm actually thinking about going back and redoing a couple panels of the early pages. Obviously not a huge priority because my main goal is just getting new content, putting those new pages out there. No, it doesn't seem like that because I'm so slow, but that is the main goal. And I know that going back and redoing stuff in older pages would just kind of be a barrier to that, would just slow me down. I've always wanted the style of the comic to be consistent, and that was something that stopped me from even starting for a really long time because I was worried about developing that consistent style. And eventually, the way I got started was to just completely throw those fears out the window. And I don't have a consistent style. And that's okay. You know, it's frustrating to me, but it's okay. And what I'm seeing now, like I knew I would, is that I'm developing a more consistent style as I go. And the interesting thing, I think, now is that if I did have large blocks of time, like I did in early 2019, late 2018, where I could just work on the comic non-stop, I would fly through these pages. And of course, ironically, I don't have that kind of time now, but we're making it work. And this was before I actually sat down and did some pencil and paper thumbnails, because this page went through a lot of reshuffling. I wonder if anyone caught the meme here. Let me know in the comments if you spotted it in the page. I've always liked that sketch of Carl. It's so funny. There was something weird going on with Carl's hair color throughout all this. I started off making him blonde all the time initially, and that was a mistake. I mean, like, it was literally an accident. He's always had brown hair in the book, and I don't know why I always started drawing him with blonde hair, but then when I corrected it and started drawing him with brown hair, I didn't even keep the color consistent. And part of that is because the lighting changes. I haven't been very consistent with any of my colors because the lighting isn't consistent. But sometimes I really wonder what's going on with his hair color. And Dagon in the book is always described as having bronze horns, so I was going for kind of a metallic bronze color for his horns and his beak. I think it says bronze horns and coppery eyes. And the dragons do all have different eye colors now. I think initially they all had copper eyes, and then I branched out and got a little more inventive with it. Just something I've really been trying to do as my world building. A lot of the dragons now have different colored eyes, different hairstyles, different jewelry on their horns. Initially, I think some of them had tattoos, and I don't know how that would work with the longer fur, but maybe we'll figure something out there. I did have a lot of fun with the lighting on Carl's face in this panel. Drawing underlit faces is like a hobby of mine. I don't know why. It's fun, it's unusual. It makes people look a little bit creepy. He was supposed to look a lot more unhealthy in this panel, honestly, and I'm struggling now to draw Carl looking unhealthy because I made him too pretty, I guess. I don't know. Leave a comment down below if you think Carl's too pretty. Lighting effects in general are my favorite thing about the comic. I said I've come to enjoy the line work more. Lighting effects were always something I enjoyed, and now I enjoy those even more as well. One of my biggest concerns before starting work on the comic was actually the unrealistic fur colors of the dragons. So having to draw dragons that were purple and yellow and orange and pink and all that. It's something that bugged me for a while because I wanted them to look like they could be semi-realistic. Like, I don't know, I imagine them as like a VFX studio working on them. But you have something, like there's a range between, let's say, Appa from The Last Airbender or the hideous creature they put in the movie, which supposedly was the more, and I'm doing air quotes here, realistic version. And there's a really difficult balance to strike between that, where you want something that looks, I guess, gritty enough to be realistic, but at the same time cute enough with the animated look. I wonder if I hit the mark with the dragons. I don't know. I think if I wanted to make them look more realistic, I'd have to kind of mute the fur color a little bit, make the eyes smaller, then you lose some of the expression, but that's why I gave them the bigger cartoony eyes, and I've made the beaks kind of a little flexible, so that they can be more emotive, and I like the way it's worked out so far. I've got a long way to go with the dragons, obviously, so we'll see where that takes us. With the storage room, one of the things I was trying to do as well was balance out the level of detail I put into backgrounds in the above ground pages with the level of detail I was putting into the below ground pages, because I kind of set myself up there. Unfortunately, I put so much detail into the store and him walking around New York City because I had great photo references, and I knew this would come back to bite me, and I did it anyway, because then when I went underground, I kind of had to maintain that same level of detail in order to make the world feel connected. And honestly, I don't think I quite got there, but I at least tried, and I think I got close. But obviously, it's a lot harder when you're trying to build scenes based on complete fantasy land as opposed to real life New York City. Drawing yellow fur and purple light was also a really interesting challenge because you're dealing with these two colors that clash a little bit, and I wanted to show that she was yellow without completely washing her out with purple light. Of course, technically, purple light is the only light in the room, so you would kind of get a washed out effect, but I guess I'm bending the rules for the sake of creativity. I don't know, maybe the spell lights, they do kind of emit a white light on a smaller level. Like, it's not just pure purple light, it's actually bright enough that it looks white sometimes. Like, they can make the light bright enough that it is white light, and therefore you do get other colors kind of showing through in scenes. I think that's important. I think you see that on the first page with Deb's yellow light as well. Although looking back at that first page with Deb's yellow light, I mean, I still don't know how I survived that page. The yellow light is so ugly. I need to go back and try and fix that. Although not right away. Obviously, I've said I'm not going to go back and I'm not going to touch the earlier pages until it's time to put out some kind of volume or something. Before I did any kind of printed booklet, I would definitely go back and edit earlier pages, but until then, I'm forcing myself to just leave them alone, and I'm going to worry about them some other time. Because right now I've got a lot of new pages to make. I could actually see having enough time to do 7 pages before the end of the year. Although I admit it doesn't seem realistic when in the last year and a half I've only managed to put out like 4. But we'll see. deciding what to leave lying around in that room was also kind of difficult because it's a storeroom, yeah, but it's also been emptied out over the past couple of years, and they're about to leave. They mentioned some guy named John, I think, in a previous page, or is it this page? Oh no, it's this one, yeah. They mentioned John in this page, and I don't remember if John is a sorcerer or a dragon, honestly, at this point. I think he appeared in one version of the prologue that I wrote years ago, but then he slowly got backgrounded as I revised it over and over again. It's for the best. John is another, well, John represents another family of sorcerers and dragons that's been hiding out down here with them. There are several families still there. They're not the only ones, but they're all living very separately and using this community storeroom to kind of occasionally meet up and exchange stuff. And I can't talk about that much more without dropping a bunch of spoilers for the end of the prologue, so I'm just going to not say anything else. I wonder how many people who are watching this know how the prologue ends, because I wrote the prologue in high school, and it did get published. I mean, obviously a way, way, way earlier version. Got published in my high school's arts journal. So my whole school read it at one point, everyone who read the arts journal. And they know how it ends, because it still ends the same way. It'd be interesting to know how many people out there know it, and obviously there's the test readers. And some of my close friends from college who I talked about it a lot around, and my mom, although she's probably forgotten and she won't watch this video, so suppose I could talk about the fact that someone messaged me on Instagram the other day and asked why my dragons look like Furbies, and I had a good laugh about that. But it did kind of fill me with some kind of existential dread. I did have Furbies as a kid, and I loved them. I carried them around in little baby baskets and everything. But I didn't necessarily want my dragons to look like Furbies. And I kind of, if you look, the visual elements are all there. Furbies don't have horns. Thankfully, that would be a little bit too terrifying. But yeah, I got a really good laugh out of that. I did actually draw a Furby dragon. I started stacking some cans there and I was like, oh no, that didn't go well in the store. Never mind. I'm glad I redesigned Dragon Feet a few years ago to look more like bear and badger paws, because it's really cute the way they pancake on the floor. These are the important questions you have to consider as a world builder. Do the feet pancake? Yes, sir, they do. And it is cute. So all this time, I'm drawing lines and I didn't really have a dedicated line brush. So here's where I finally stopped and made myself a dedicated line brush. I feel like that's a very important step for the comic. mentioned doing more interesting hairstyles for the dragons, and one of the things I added right as I was starting this page was Relena's braid there around one of her horns. You can see she doesn't have that in the concept sketch, and I just wanted to do something to make her hair look different than Dagon's, so she got a braid. Given their living situation and everything, I didn't feel like it would be appropriate for her to have a bunch of jewelry and other kind of decorative stuff going on, but we definitely will see more of that with the dragons in New Orleans, so I'm excited to get there. Here's where I switched over to my new setup. You can see the gaps on the sides of the screens because instead of using two screens, where one is my larger iMac screen that I'm actually looking at to draw on with my tablet, now I just have my laptop screen and the tablet on the side. So everything's a little bit smaller, but it's the best functional setup I could get for my new smaller space, and it's been working out okay for me. I haven't lost too much, I feel, by losing the bigger screen. Would I still like to have a bigger screen? Yes, but otherwise it's alright. You little Wheatley, still cute. So I don't know if I should mention this because it does betray that I was way too influenced by Aragon as a kid, but when I started writing this story there were a lot more influences from Aragon in here. And Wheatley's original name was Elgon. Yes, entirely because it sounds like Aragon. Actually, in the original version, I think Deb and Relena had different names too. I was worried when I started doing the line work for this frame that I would lose the goofy quality of his expression, but I think I held on to it okay. Drawing mouth shapes and teeth in those kind of open mouth expressions has definitely been a challenge for me. It's something I didn't practice a lot before I started doing the comic. So I have had a lot of people comment like, oh, well that mouth shape doesn't look like he's saying the words he's saying or something, and yeah, that definitely is, it's difficult. I'll get better at it as time goes on. about halfway through this page, I had this idea to do the little thought versions of Dagon and Carl, and I think I cut out the version of Carl that I started doing because it didn't make it into the final page. But the idea is that they have this mental connection where they can see each other's expressions and stuff as well as just read the words, and I wanted to kind of delve into that a little bit. And it was really fun to draw Dagon making that face, because it's kind of stretchy and goofy. Here I changed the angle Carl was facing just because it felt too similar to a previous panel I'd done. I'm trying not to repeat a bunch of stuff. Unfortunately, when you're working with relative close-ups of somebody's face, there's only so many angles you can draw them at. But I'm glad I did that, because I didn't need... And especially because the other panel of him facing right like that was in the exact same spot on the page, on a previous page. So I definitely didn't need that. I love Dagon's expression there. Something weird that I've kind of been dealing with in the prologue is, and that I've toned down actually from the original, is the kind of like weird, my wife's so annoying vibes. Like, I don't know why I wrote that in, but it's not that Deb, it's not like a kind of an annoying wife situation. It's like Deb is just, they have a difference of opinion. She's the one who wants to stay and fight, and Carl is kind of like, no, let's cut our losses and get out of here. The end result being that they seem like they kind of hate each other if you're not careful. Which they don't. And it's been difficult to balance that, showing like that they do care for each other very much without making Deb seem like the villain. Got my thumbnail layout for the next page there, and I stuck pretty close to that. There was one line in between two panels there that I ended up cutting because, again, it just made Deb seem worse. And I'm really not trying to cast her in a bad light. That shot of all three of them standing together in the same panel was really fun to do. Yeah, it's really difficult to fit people and dragons into panels together, and that's something I might have thought about more when I was coming up with the whole concept of, you know, dragons being the size of horses, but just wait until they have to, like, stand around in kitchens together and stuff. Oh man, the elevator scene. Oh no. I'm having flash forwards to future trauma. Coloring this page was pretty straightforward. I have a much easier time coloring fur than I do Carl's face, for sure. So we're into November now. So I'm also working on the Christmas illustration. And this is when it started getting cold, too. I remember sitting here at my desk or posting about how cold my toes were. my poor feet were freezing off. And it's also very difficult to draw when your hands get cold. So through November, December, January, February, that was something I was really struggling with. Luckily, winters are short here. We did have that big ice storm this year. That didn't affect the comic a whole lot in particular because I abandoned ship. I went and hung out at somebody else's house and just rewatched all of Full Metal Alchemist. I didn't even try to work. I was so just worn out from the disaster. It really got me thinking on a rewrite of the story though, because the part after the prologue does start at the end of October. They end up running around in the woods a lot in November up in Virginia. Got a reference of me standing in the RV with Piper on my shoulders. She's my little Wheatley Dragon model. Very helpful. She did a very good job. I used to carry her around on my shoulders like that when the concrete would get too hot in the middle of the day or when she'd get tired. Just pop her up on my shoulders and carry her home. She weighs about 22 pounds, but luckily she's really cooperative, so she makes it easy. She wasn't a good reference, obviously, for the size of Wheatley's feet, because he's got huge paws, and Piper's are tiny little toothpick legs. And I did end up adding more neck to him eventually. Adding the little touches of background on this page in certain panels was pretty easy, and it was nice that the lighting stayed pretty consistent. I think the only thing I was really uncertain about with this page was the internal dialogue between Carl and Dagon. I was a little unsure how much of the conversation between them I should try to show, because I didn't want to go overboard, and I think one version of the page definitely had me going a little overboard. And I had to tone it down quite a bit. And I can't describe how daunting it was when I very first started out following the concept of sorcerers and dragons having that mental connection. I remember sitting at my computer when I was, how old was I? Like 21? Maybe 20? Just feeling so overwhelmed at the prospect of even trying to do that, because it was such a huge challenge. Now I've been doing it for so many years I hardly even think about it. Just, yeah, who doesn't have a psychic connection with a dragon, honestly? Yeah, it's odd to look back at the first time I rewrote the prologue with that psychic connection. Actually, you know, I remember it being, I was in my first apartment, so I would have been 22. It was around 2015, 2016 when I started writing version 6, I think, of the story. Version 6 was the first one where they were psychic. Actually, version 1, they were psychic, but then I wrote it out because it was too hard. And I gave up at one point. Yeah, version 1 was written in first person, and Kree was psychic, and so was Dagon. Well, I mean, the psychic connection was shown with Dagon because I wrote the prologue back with version 1. Goodness, that was back in the Twilight days. And I did start writing black magic in first person because of Twilight, because I wanted it to be like Twilight. And dear God, if anybody points out that Ella sounds a lot like Bella, just don't even go there, friend. Don't even go there. We don't talk about that. And then I think eventually I read some article about how it was way cooler and more sophisticated to write in third person, which really it's not. It doesn't really matter. But I read that article and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I better rewrite everything in third person. And I did. And it's been in third person ever since, so. Not third person omniscient, but at least it's still got Ella as the central character who tells most of the story. This was actually my third take at that top left panel because I wanted to switch up the angle from previous panels. Again, I'm trying not to repeat too much. I want fresh looks, fresh ideas. Because I only had one screen technically to work on, it's my tablet just mirroring the display on my laptop. I do start watching videos and stuff on the sides here occasionally. That's one thing I do really miss about having a secondary screen. So I know, especially while working on page 14 and pages prior, I worked my way through so many comedy stand-up routines. I just have those playing on my second screen while I worked. I don't know why I got into comedy so much that year. But it's funny now, when I look back at those pages, I still get flashbacks of random comedy routines that I watched on YouTube. They're inextricably linked in my brain now forever. I have gotten a lot less fussy about modeling for my own panels and poses and stuff too, because it's just impossible when you're going online trying to find the exact pose reference that I need. I can never find it. So I've gotten to the point where I'm a lot more comfortable just before I even look online. I don't even bother trying. I just grab my camera, get up, do some funky poses in my living room. Drawing hands especially is so much easier with a pose reference. Hands and capes. I don't know what it is about hands and capes, but it's just, I need some kind of thing to work off of. Yeah, Carl definitely looks too healthy in that panel. Again, I made him too pretty. What was I thinking? Sorcerer Jesus. Sorcerer / Obi-Wan Kenobi. Jesus. He's all the mentor characters. Which just means I have to kill him extra hard. I did have a lot of fun with the way the light shines through Wheatley's ear there. And I realized I made him huge. Whoops. I mean, depending on the perspective, you could read him as still being tiny, but I think since he was walking past that door, I realized I had to make him smaller. Because if you look at him as even with the door and the prop beams there, he definitely needed to be smaller. Darn it, Carl. Carl! You made him too cute. Stop it! He's supposed to be bedraggled and weary. Using that tilt-shift blur again for the background. I know I used it once and my computer crashed. I ended up having to redo almost an entire panel. That was fun. Wheatley's baby coloring. Yeah, the reason Wheatley is kind of gray-brownish with the black face and paws is because that's the baby coloring I came up with. Or one of them. Anyway, I might do some variations. Baby dragons, I think until age 3 or 4, have that kind of neutral coloring until they develop their brighter colored fur. Wheatley obviously is going to be a purple dragon like his dad. I'd be interested to know how clear it is to everyone reading that the family dynamic is the way it is, with Wheatley being Relena and Dagon's kid, Ben's dragon. Like, I don't know, it's obviously a weird fantasy concept. I wonder how well it carries through in the story. I just have to hope for the best, I guess, because I don't like spelling things out explicitly when I can help it. It's something I don't enjoy seeing in other stories either. I like it when they're a little more subtle. I mean, obviously it's really difficult, especially when you're working with a massive amount of world building. How much do you reveal? How fast, you know? It's really hard. I never want to end up info dumping, but at the same time, you've got to have the reference of the world to understand parts of the story. And I do take a lot of cues from the Dresden Files, which obviously is a series I encountered way later in producing this story. Someone read my story and said it reminded them of the Dresden Files. So I went and checked it out, and that was honestly one of the best compliments I've ever gotten for my story, because the Dresden Files is way better than than anything I can do. I'm trying, but yeah, the way Jim Butcher holds back information and sets up plots, you know, the way he sets up plots several books in advance and stuff, it's just incredible. I don't think I could ever do something that good. Black Magic is only ever going to be, 5 books at the most. That's all I've ever come up with. Actually, I think that was when I was splitting the first story into 3 books, so now it's just 4, because I've got the first story in 2 books. And then I had another idea for a secondary storyline with some of our main characters from the first set. I don't know if we'll ever get that far. The first plot should wrap up pretty neatly after 2 books. And I could just leave it there if I wanted to. Of course, this is the novels I'm talking about here, not the comic. I don't know how long the comic is going to be. It's if I tried to make the comic completely follow the plot of the books, it would be, I don't know, thousands of pages long. It would be so long, it would go on forever. Kind of like Unsounded, which is honestly what I modeled it after, so... Could I see myself doing this 10, 20 years from now? Maybe. Hopefully I'll get a lot faster by then. I don't know, the way I understand it, Ashley Cope based a lot of the plot of Unsounded on some sort of campaign game, like D&D style campaign game she had been playing for years beforehand. So she's got a massive amount of world building that she already had sorted out before she ever started publishing the comic and writing the story. I mean, yeah, okay, I worked on Black Magic for 10 years before I started doing the comic too, but only about a year and a half maybe of that was world building. I never really got into that as much. People have compared the level of Unsounded's world building to Tolkien, and I can see that. I'd be happier if people saw me on a level with Jim Butcher. That's honestly hashtag goals. I never even wanted to come up with a fantasy language, I kind of had to. The story twisted my arm, and eventually I came up with enough words to make it seem like I had a whole language and some kind of written script. Which the script you see in the first part of the comic is actually not the one I think I'm gonna go with. I came up with that one kind of on the fly, overnight, and I wasn't super happy with it after I published the page, so I went back last year and worked on developing the written language a little further. If you check out my Patreon, there's some info on that. I wrote out all my patrons' names in the Gaulish script. So if you want to check that out, go have a look. Heck, leave a comment if you're a new patron, and I'll go back and write your name in the Gaulish script too. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely a relief to see I got better at coloring Deb's hair eventually. It started out so daisy yellow in the first couple of pages, and it was really nice to have the purple light here to balance it out a bit, as well as, you know, I started with a way better base color for her blonde hair. I joke a lot about how when I first started working on the comic, I couldn't draw blonde hair or black hair, and I gave my two main characters black hair and blonde hair. Great decision making on my part. It worked out though. I obviously now, by the time I get to the part where I introduce my two main characters, I mean Ben's already in this page, but he's 2 years old, so it doesn't count. When I introduce them for real, I think I'm gonna be okay at drawing black and blonde hair. It's been several years. We're past that point now. I am now prepared to face that hurdle. Sometimes, like for Deb's hands here, I don't even stop and take a picture to model or to use as a reference. I just hold my hand up repeatedly in the same angle and twist around weirdly to look at it. That tends to work for the quicker ones. Carl's pose in the background there is one of my favorites I think I've ever drawn of him. He looks so goofy with Wheatley standing on his back. And the curly dragon tail's so cute. I'm so excited, folks. I am so excited to start drawing more dragon tails. I've always kind of waffled between having the dragon tails be fully prehensile and just having them use them for balance. It's kind of on a line. Like, I don't think a dragon could, like, use their tail to just, like, reach and pick things up, but they are pretty flexible. I think at this point I started watching Schitt's Creek on the side, so that's probably like season 2 or something. Haven't quite finished the show at time of this recording, but I really enjoy it. One thing I changed between the thumbnails in these pages is the direction Ben is facing. I was surprised to find I even felt pretty confident drawing Deb's face at this point. Guess it only takes me a page or two to get used to drawing a character, which is good. Definitely gonna come in handy down the road. We're nearing the end here, so I left that panel for last in a weird way. Feels strange getting near the end of a page. It's almost like I start to worry that I'll miss working on it, and then I slow down. But working with them in blocks of 3s like this has definitely improved my pace. I know it doesn't seem that way because these 3 have been so incredibly slow and difficult to get out, you know, due to external factors, but it's psychologically a lot easier for me to move from page to page when I'm doing them in batches like this. So that's been a really good development. Will be interesting to see what things start to look like once I get to the main part of the story. For the prologue, I've used mostly black backgrounds behind the panels, and I'm gonna try and switch it over to white for the main part of the story. That'll be an interesting shift. I have a little rebel symbol over the door there. And sometimes I'll have things like Deb's brooch there. Zero world building went into that. So like, it needs a design. Okay. Make it look like a Danish, I don't freaking know. It's okay, Deb's coat won't be around much longer. Should I insert an evil laugh there? Nah. Alright, if you listened to me ramble through all 3 of those pages, sorry, I guess. Thanks for sticking around. And it's time to thank my patrons! Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Matt Johnson, Cheryl Fair, Hannah Parker, Enid Smeek, Marisha, Wolf Bullock Studios, and Talon Ice for making this video possible. And thanks everybody for sticking with me through the past year and a half. You guys are awesome. Until next time. Bye!